Please welcome the incredible Kate Northrup.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Oh man, I am so excited. I was just skimming through your book again last night, and it just got me realizing that all these hot flashes that I'm experiencing at night are normal.
Yeah.
And we need to appreciate them and respect that this is what's happening in the women's body. And let's shine a light on that because I love that. And I know that you have some other amazing stuff that you do. But give us a little quick download on what you do, especially today.
Absolutely. So, I really am here as someone who, I don't know why this is my career. It sort of chose me. But I am here to be a human advocate for our bodies and the way that we are designed completely perfectly to be vessels of incredible creativity and service and abundance. And that if we can work with our bodies, both our cycles and our nervous system, we can actually open up to do our best work, be our most productive, be our most on fire, and be our most prosperous and abundant selves. And the two ways that I do that are working with people around their cycles and working with people around their nervous system, which are both absolutely majestic, magical aspects of our bodies that I am obsessed with.
You are. And
I'm
you
obsessed.
make it, and you add the grace to it as well.
Well,
You talk about in your book, you're like, you don't want to be that awkward 13-year-old walking around a mall without a tampon. And I was like, oh my gosh, she said the word tampon. And isn't that crazy that society, even me as a 42-year-old woman, it still has to chuckle when you say the word tampon?
Isn't that so funny? Well, okay. So, do you want me to get into why that is? Because I just want to blow that one up.
Yep, do it.
So every single human person on planet Earth came through a woman's body. We all grew in a uterus. Not all of us came through a vagina, but we did all come through a uterus for sure. We all started out as an egg. There was a sperm. So the menstrual cycle and women's bodies are literally responsible for all of human life. That's a lot of power.
Yeah.
That's a lot of power. So it makes sense, because we live in a patriarchy, that for thousands of years, systematically, we have been told that our bodies are a problem, that they are shameful, that they are gross, that they are dirty, and that we shouldn't talk about them, because it has been a deliberate practice in disconnecting us from our greatest source of power. And so I also was raised by a gynecologist. So it's like really normal for me to use all of the words that we've been told are shameful or not okay. It was just very normalized in my household. We were talking about periods and uteruses and the cervix and all the things all the time. And so I'm sort of like the perfect person, because I don't feel weird at all saying the word vagina, ever. And so, I love it. We need to just talk about it more, because our bodies are our greatest source of power. And we just need to end the ridiculousness of being disconnected from them and having any shame or feeling of weirdness around them.
There's so much shame. I remember going to our pharmacy to get feminine products, and I had my basket was loaded. I was like, if I'm here, I'm loading up for the next 3 cycles. May as well have it stocked. Yeah. So I don't have that embarrassing moment at the mall without a tampon.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy at the checkout was a teenage kid, and he looked like he was so awkward scanning all these pads and tampons and all this stuff through. And I'm smiling, sorry.
Dude, you exist because of this.
Yeah.
This is actually where you came from. That's the part that's so insane. It's not even that it's something that only applies to a few people. It's everybody. It's where we came from. And I think that has a whole lot to do with our spiritual disconnection and with the way as humans, we are so disconnected from our source, and we need to be reorganized around that.
Yeah.
And part of that is women's bodies and honoring them and celebrating them and learning about them, men and women, people of all gender expressions.
Yep. I remember we did Croatia last summer. We rented this gigantic boat and had 18 families on,
Cool.
maybe not 18. There were 18 children on this.
Oh my goodness.
It was so perfect.
That sounds
it sounds
great.
strange. I know, it doesn't sound right. But one of the ladies that worked on the boat was the yoga instructor. So she did morning sessions. And so we have a week-long adventure on this boat. And the second day, she's not doing yoga. And I see her. And I say, hey, what's up? Where was the class today? And she goes, part of my contract, I negotiated that the first 2 days of my cycle, I won't work. And
Love it. Love it.
We can do that.
That's so good.
And the men were like, oh, that's lazy. You can just see them chirping because they don't get it. They don't understand.
And I also want to say this. Like the first 2 days of our cycle are the time that we're the most connected to our intuition. Our brains are the most wired between our left and right hemispheres during the first couple of days of our cycle. Our intuition is loud. So it's not even like taking that time is our best way to connect with our truth, to connect with our best creativity, to connect with our best decision-making capabilities. So it's not even about like, I'm in pain or I can't handle it. Like, I guarantee any woman can do anything with cramps and bleeding. It's not about that. It's that actually taking that time is one of the best ways we can connect with our most powerful self. So it has nothing to do with weakness, and it has everything to do with accessing our greatness.
Oh, okay. You got me thinking. So my cycle have been a little bit weary, like all over the place since November, just the stress and stuff. But imagine, okay, so the people that are able to really get a sense of when those days are going to happen can then create capacity in their days to be able to harness that.
Yes, to harness that energy.
That energy.
Yeah. And we have these 4 distinct phases that happen every single month when we're cycling. And by the way, they also happen in a much more subtle way when you're not cycling, like if you're pregnant or you're nursing or you're post-menopause. It's because the moon is doing the exact same 4 phases every single month. And we are impacted by the moon. Again, it's much more subtle, but like, I just want to say this because if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, I missed the boat, I don't get to do this. Like, you really can. Even sometimes when I give keynotes about this, the sound and the lighting guys will come up to me and be like, this is so cool, but I don't have a period. Can I do it? And I'm like, yeah, you can. Like, you have the moon. We all do. This has happened time after time after time. They're so cute. They pull me aside in the back. So anyway, we have a time to harness the power of our intuition and our creative downloads and our decision-making capability. And that's while we're bleeding. That's the menstrual phase. Then we have a time to take action and initiate on what came through during the download if we made space to listen, like the yoga teacher on the boat in Croatia. Love her. Then we have a time around ovulation. So that was the follicular phase to take action on what comes through during menstruation. Then the ovulation phase is the time to really bring then that work out into the world. So it's the time we're most social. It's the time our pheromones are the highest. It's the time we are literally the most fertile, but also metaphorically the most fertile, the most social, the most verbally fluent. It is the time to cross-pollinate and like be out there and launch your thing. And then the luteal phase is the 10 to 12 days before we get our period again. And that is the time to tie up loose ends, to cross your T's, dot your I's, make all those like phone calls that you don't feel like making, all that stuff that I just like really struggle with. And prepare yourself, like essentially clear the slate so that as your menstrual phase comes again, you are prepared to go within and listen for your instructions for this next cycle. And we have so many opportunities to take advantage of that in our cycling years. And then when we're beyond our cycling years, we still have the lunar phases to work with. But in our culture, we are taught that we're supposed to be on and at the same energy at all times. And as business owners, we go from planning to launching, to planning to launching, to planning to launching. We're interviewing right now for a new full-time role in our company. And we were just sharing that one of the things we do, which I thought was like really normal, is after every, I was like, does not everyone does this? After every launch, like we organize in our company the projects to make sure that they have gone through all of the phases. So the pause and reflect, the plan and initiate, the connect and be visible, and the wind down and complete and focus phases. So all 4 of those phases, which are all covered by the menstrual cycle and the lunar cycle, but also for a project. And so in our company, after every launch, we sit down with the whole team and we go through our launch debrief of like what worked really well, what didn't work well. My friend Clint calls them glows and grows, which I love. It just makes everyone feel good. Like what were the glows? What were the grows? Right? So good. And we recap and we integrate and we make things better for next time. And when this woman we were interviewing heard this, she's worked in very large corporations, like multi-billion-dollar corporations. She was like, oh my God, I love that. That's so cool that you do that after every project. And I was like, it's not normal to take a beat and integrate. And apparently it's not. Like, it's a very big deal. Our world is organized to just like expect that we're always in a season of harvest, which makes no sense because we are animals. Our bodies are nature. We would not look out at the trees and be like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have leaves in January? Like, we just know they don't. That's how they're designed. They're doing it right for their design. And we need to do it right for our design. Certainly as people who have cycles, but really everyone can play with this.
Totally. And the seasons are so potent too. Like in the wintertime, we kind of just want to put on that cozy thing. And as you say, have a cup of tea. And you started writing your book, right? In the fall, or was it summer into the fall?
I think so. It's like hard to remember now.
So long ago.
And I was also pregnant. So I was pregnant and nursing the whole time I was writing Do Less. So I did not actually have cycles during that time, which is just proof positive that we can all do this, even if we're not having a period.
That's so fascinating. And one of the stories I love that you shared about you being on a yacht or a boat with no power, or there was no light, artificial light.
There was no artificial light.
Tell us that story.
Yeah. So it's funny. We're having a sailing theme today.
Totally. That's the theme. Let's go, skipper.
I spent a semester in college as part of the crew of a wooden schooner. Because I don't know, it's like a 135-foot wooden schooner. And so we did oceanographic research 24 hours a day and also sailed 24 hours a day. And we kept military watches, but there was no artificial light on the boat. It was like very rustic. We all slept in these little bunks with all our stuff. I mean, it was really close to the earth. And we would be gone for weeks at a time without seeing land. And interestingly enough, all of the women on the boat started cycling with the new moon and in sync with this one particular girl who happened to be the youngest on the boat. She was a senior in high school. The rest of us were juniors in college. She was the youngest on the boat, but she was like the alpha energetically. Oh my God, and she had always cycled with the moon. And so we all started syncing up with her cycle because listen, I always hesitate to say this part because I don't want any woman to start like comparing her cycle and finding herself wrong. Like every cycle you have, no matter what lunar phase it comes at, has its own energy. But if we are getting our cycle at the new moon, it's kind of like a double dose of that intuitive inward download energy because the new moon is the same energy as the menstrual phase. It's the same energy as that winter time going within, pause and reflect. So if you get your period at that time, you're kind of like, just like intuition on hyperspeed.
Yeah. I want that to happen. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, it's cool. And one of the things you can do to, have your cycle align with the moon, if you are wanting to just see what that's like, is going out at night and getting the moonlight in your eyes can help you shift. Now, if you get your moon on your period on the full moon, that's actually a time, which is really interesting, where you're getting your intuitive downloads on behalf of the collective. So it's like shining that full moon energy in the darkness of your intuition So it's more of like an outward time where you're kind of doing that internal work on behalf of other people as well.
I wish that all these apps that I use, like Aura, Flow, whatever these apps, had the moon
Wouldn't that be cool?
connected into it. This
I know.
makes so much sense.
Yeah, it would be really cool if we could. I have my own little menstrual tracking process that includes the Natural Cycles app and my Aura ring. And then I add in the lunar piece myself just in my journal.
I don't pay enough attention to the moon. I take a picture of it when it's really pretty, but I don't actually pay attention to it. All the more reason, I'm going to put this in my notes. Things to do. Got to do it.
Things to do.
So,
I will say putting the lunar cycle in your consciousness adds momentum to your life in a cool way.
Okay.
It's like fertilizing what you're already doing. It's just like add fertilizer to the good stuff that's already happening.
I love that. Okay, I'm putting moon on my Post-it note. Moon. Kate says, look up the moon. Moon. Perfect.
You can download the lunar cycle onto your Google Calendar.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So that's like a really easy way to do it.
Awesome. Love it. Now, all this to say, because I mean, the book is incredible. Everyone needs to read it, whether you're a mother or not. Whether you're
oh yeah, for sure. I actually rewrote it for the paperback version and made it less mothery because so many women had reached out to me and said, I really loved your book and I'm not a mom. And so when the paperback version came out, I revised it.
Okay, good to know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how does all this then relate to wealth, abundance, money, your nervous system?
So my own story, so despite growing up in like a very female positive household, my mom was a holistic gynecologist. I grew up in a very period positive household. Like my mom was always wanting to do rituals and teach us about the wisdom of our bodies. And I was like, not into it. I was just like, oh my God, you're so weird. Why can you not be like the other mothers? Cut to me like 30 years later, I'm totally the weird mom.
You're the weird mom now.
I'm super the weird mom. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, here we are.
Like, I love it.
So
looks good on you.
Oh, thank you. So what happened is after my first daughter was born, so I had a very traumatic birth with her, a really hard pregnancy. And then she was quite sick her first year of life. She had severe immune issues and severe eczema. So she was scratching herself bloody in the night. I mean, it was just like something from a horror movie, not from like what I expected of the first year of motherhood, you know, which I thought was going to be like very pink and cuddly. Not. So I was traumatized. I was really struggling with postpartum anxiety and postpartum insomnia. So my nervous system was out of whack, but I didn't know that's what was going on. And so instead I was just trying to control everyone and everything, including my baby's sleep, which is literally impossible. So I was a real joy to be around during this time. And, then at 13 months postpartum, I was still nursing, but my period came back. And for the first time in my life, I was so interested in it, which was weird because never before I had absolutely my now husband, when we first started dating, it would always be, I would get my period and I would be like, we have to stop at CVS. And I remember one time he was like, I thought periods come like sort of regularly. Like, can't you put that on your calendar? Why is it that you never know when it's coming? Why are you always surprised? Which is such funny foreshadowing.
You're like,
to
well, let me tell you about
businesses now. Yeah. But I started tracking my cycle, and I'm getting to the abundance part. And what happened was a miracle, which is that within a couple of months, I no longer had anxiety. I no longer had insomnia because now I understand that our nervous systems crave a sense of safety and predictability. And you know, you're a mom in those early days of motherhood. Everything feels so massively out of control. Your life has gone completely haywire. And as an ambitious type A kind of person, I really struggled with how unpredictable everything was and how out of control I felt. But tracking my cycle and having these 4 phases to depend on created this deep sense of calm that nothing else did. And so I realized in retrospect, I was healing my nervous system. and learning to signal to my body that I was safe. Then in 2019, end of 2019, I was handed a book by my coach at the time, Raw Goddess. And the book was called Patriarchy Stress Disorder.
Oh, by Valerie Rain. She was on my show.
Okay.
Love her work.
She's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So shout out to Valerie Rain.
Yeah.
My obsession with the nervous system began with her book. And so I began to read about how living in a patriarchy as a woman is actually traumatic and the different layers of trauma that impact our bodies. And this was after Do Less came out. And I was like, I think so, or maybe I was reading it right as the edits were happening. I don't remember. But anyway, I was like, oh my God, this is everything. And I knew it was super connected to our money, because then when I went back in time and sort of remembered the curriculum that I had created that became my first book, Money, a Love Story, like 11 years ago, that book came out, I realized so much of why that curriculum works is because it is helping us to regulate our nervous systems and feel safe with money. Because so many of us grew up in environments where the energy around money was a lot of stress, a lot of fear, a lot of pressure. And so our bodies learned that money is stress and fear and pressure. And we have these thermostats in our nervous system set by the energy in our childhood homes, because the nervous system, all the neurons speak to each other through electricity, which is just energy. Yeah. They're doing these like a little electric firings all the time. And it's energy frequency traveling through our bodies, sending information to keep us safe. And those settings, those energetic settings, it's like a thermostat in our bodies for how much relaxed abundance we can feel. Now, some people have a thermostat setting that is like, I can have a lot of money, but in order to have that, I have to feel a lot of stress. And then some people have a thermostat setting of like, I can't have money because it's scary. It causes pain. It causes fear. It causes whatever. Like we have all these things, right? And so what I realized is if we really want to create a permanent, automatic state of prosperity and abundance where earning becomes easier, stewarding our money becomes easier, it just is like flow, that state of relaxation about it, deep trust, then we need to not work on our thoughts, because our thoughts alone cannot heal our bodies. You cannot think yourself out of a way that your body feels. And what we know is that our unconscious is what is creating the vast majority of our emotions, thoughts, and then behavior. And so when we go further upstream and heal at the level of the nervous system, that's how we can shift our abundance set points so that that state becomes automatic and we don't have to like police our thoughts and constantly be working on our mindset. And like, it just becomes an identity. It becomes your new thermostat to have abundance.
I love the use of thermostat. The Big Leap, one of the best books.
Oh, Gay Hendricks. I mean, give it up for Gay. He's the best.
He is.
And what he didn't talk about in his book, The Big Leap, was the way that thermostat setting is in our nervous system. So when I learned about the nervous system, I was like, oh, this is the scientific mechanism of the Big Leap. That's so cool.
Yeah, that part was missing. So it's
and right, it was missing in my first two books too. Like no one knew.
No one knew. So you kind of grew up in this.
I did.
So that was my upbringing too. My parents are amazing. They've been married for 58 years or something, and still together, still going strong. And I had a beautiful childhood, but also of the times in the 80s, it was a different world back then.
It was.
Both my mom and dad worked. I think my mom actually made more money than my father. So there's a different dynamic there. But I remember the message was the money you have in your bank account is the money that you've worked really hard for. Yes. And there was no other way. So easy money meant that you're cheating somebody. It's a scam. It's a lie. Watch out. You can never get easy money. Mm-hmm. But it all compounds. If you do well, then making money can potentially become easier.
Yes.
And it's yours.
But if what the environment that you were raised in was communicating to you is that you have to work hard for money, then the automatic corollary of that thought is, or that even that nervous system thermostat is, oh, well, then if I want to make more money, I have to work even harder. And that keeps a lot of people stuck. I talk to so many women entrepreneurs who are like, yeah, I want $1 million business, but I don't want to do what I think it takes. And I don't know if I can handle it. And I do not work any more now with a multi-million-dollar company than I did when I was in the low six figures. In fact, I probably work less.
Yeah. Amazing. Congratulations, by the way.
Well, thanks.
That's a beautiful thing. So how do people then tap into that? How do they really uncover those stories that they're telling themselves subconsciously to be able to have money and a good nervous system?
Yeah, totally. Like a nervous system that feels safe with abundance.
Yeah.
And so so I'll tell you first something that we have to understand, and then second, what to do.
Okay.
What we need to understand is that according to the nervous system, anything that is unfamiliar registers as unsafe. It registers as a threat, which is very tricky when we are wanting to create something, manifest something, go after a goal that's something we haven't experienced before. Because unconsciously, our nervous system will do anything in its power to prevent us from having the thing that we think we want, but our nervous system is terrified because it's new and it's unfamiliar. So we're wired for survival. And by default, if we don't do anything about that, we will create over and over again a facsimile of everything that we've experienced before. And no matter how many times we try to change our mindset or go after the behaviors, I mean, all of those things definitely make a difference. But without the nervous system piece, what ends up happening is exactly what this data shows. So Elvest did a study, and they found that for women who make $250K a year or more, which is a very above average income, over 75% of them still feel financially unconfident. Is unconfident a word? Anyway,
today
they still don't feel financially confident. And so the illusion is, what will solve my problems is making more money.
Oh.
And that is absolutely true if you can't pay for food and your housing, like for sure. But what we know is that more money does not make most people actually feel more safe unless they know how to signal safety in their bodies first. So the whole name of the game to retrain our nervous system and change the thermostat setting is to be able to recognize when we're dysregulated. So to be able to recognize when we're having a stressor, both positive and negative stressors, by the way, that is, excuse me, sending us out of our range of regulation. And at that moment, know that we need to work with our body to signal safety. So as an example, when I was offered my first book deal, I was like, I don't know, I was like 26, 27. And I was literally in person with Louise Hay, she's like the grandmother of personal development. And she said, we would like to, sign a book contract with you. We would like to publish your book. I went across the street to this cafe in Union Square in New York City and had a complete and total meltdown.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because that was a positive stressor that was triggering as a threat to my nervous system because it was so far outside what was familiar to me. It was registering in my body as a threat. What I didn't know at the time is that I needed to do something to signal safety to my nervous system so that I could expand my range of capacity and actually feel safe with a new experience that was a positive new experience. Yeah. So when we're dysregulated, we go into either hyper or hypo. Hypo is like, we can't take action. We're overwhelmed. We can't prioritize. We're just like functional freeze, stuck. So that's a sympathetic nervous system response. And then hyper is like, I'm in massive action, but I am completely doing everything randomly. It's like I'm doing, I'm overworking, I'm overdoing. And that end is tricky because that's very celebrated by society. It's like, the more you do, the better you are, the more valuable you are. And when I read for the first time on Erica Chitty Cohen's Instagram, she said, productivity is a trauma response, which is very connected
that hit me.
Right?
Heart. Oh yeah, I feel that.
Very connected to Dr. Valerie Rain with patriarchy stress disorder. Like, let me prove to you how valuable I am by how busy I am, or like good girl syndrome, or, you know, so much of our ambition is rooted to trauma. And so how do we signal safety? Well, there's so many different ways, but any one of them, any way that you can get in your body and be fully present with your sensors, with your senses, with your 5 senses. So one of my favorite ones, just because it's easy, we can all do it anytime, is to breathe into our lower back ribs. So there's something about breathing into your lower back ribs that activates the vagus nerve and turns on parasympathetic rest and digest. So we can just try it right now, just sending the breath down all the way to the lowest lobes of your lungs on the back. So breathing in and then breathing out, and see if you can do it in and out through your nose, because breathing in and out through your nose actually also activates the parasympathetic. So that's just one out of a million different practices to signal safety to your body. And, you know, there's different ways to know, do I need something more activating, something more relaxing, whatever. But that's sort of the name of the game, is like, we got to learn to feel safe first, and then we can get what we want.
I could have used that breath work this morning. What I've become attuned to is that when I'm having a moment that is like, I'm anxious, overwhelmed, Dan is really good at just coming up and just giving me a hug. Of course, the default is trying to fix it.
Right, of course. But you know what actually happens is when we hug for 20 seconds or more, which is longer, totally appropriate for husband and wife. But just know that, like, if you try to hug somebody for 20 seconds, it feels awkward unless you're married to them or they're like your best friend. But try it out. Well, find somebody to hug for 20 seconds. And what it does is it releases oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, and it activates the parasympathetic response, and it metabolizes stress. So that's why it makes you feel better. You don't even need him to say anything. No. All you need is the hug, because what you're doing is you're co-regulating. And in that moment, he's being a strong masculine presence, and he feels like a safe place. And your body then gets the signal, oh, I'm safe now. It's so beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I also told him you could have done that without talking.
Totally.
And that would have been more magical.
In fact, not talking would be better.
Yeah, just
tell him that Kate told him the data says no talking.
Oh, I'm going to, what you just said, I'm going to loop on record, and I'm going to put it next to his bed. I'm really curious though, going back to this moment that you had at that coffee shop after you got this book deal and you're freaking out. What did you do to calm yourself?
You know, I wish I had known what I know now. I didn't really I just had a really good cry. And then though, I had a girlfriend come meet me. So this was smart. So this is one of the best go-tos to signal safety, is to reach out for support from a safe person.
Yeah.
This is why community is so important. This is why coaching relationships, mentorships, online groups, communities where there are people committed to growth with and safe people, it matters so much. We cannot do this alone. So my friend Sandra, she's incredible. She came to meet me at the cafe, and she basically just made me feel better. And just with her presence, like we talked about, just the presence of co-regulating with another human's nervous system that already feels safe, signals to our body that we are safe. So that was happening energetically. And then I was in a whole spin because nervous system thermostats, nervous system settings set off a cascade of thoughts that are usually not true. So the thoughts that I was having were, I don't deserve this. There are other people who want this more than me. I'm ashamed I didn't work hard enough for it. It was too easy. I'm taking this away from someone else who wants it more and therefore deserves it more. It was just a massive unworthiness, And she was like, Kate, there's not a limited number of book deals on the planet, and you writing your book and receiving this is not in any way, shape, or form preventing another wonderful author from having their book published. Like, you're in the zero sum model and it's a lie.
We need more Sandras in this world.
100%. And like, also just like in very 3D reality, people who buy books buy books. Like, you and I are readers. I'm going to buy millions and millions of more books in my lifetime. Like, it's just more is more. And so it helped me co-regulate with her, and then helped me to identify that like that was going on with my thoughts. But at the time I had no language around the nervous system. I didn't even know it really existed. And so I didn't deal with that in the best way.
Now you can teach on this.
Oh yeah.
So this relates enormously to people who have the same thoughts around money. It's the same thing.
Deserve
this wealth. It didn't work hard enough. There are somebody who are more qualified than me to get this.
And what we know is that actually, and what's so cool about the wiring of our bodies, why I'm so like, I have to talk about it all the time, is that our bodies know the truth. And the truth is that we are all connected. We are all one. We are all waves in the same ocean. We are all divine energy incarnate from the same source energy, from God or whatever you call it. I call it God. Sometimes I call it the goddess. Depends on the day.
I like that better.
So anyway, we're not separate. Our bodies know that. So our mirror neurons, like when I'm around somebody who's crying, I pretty much will cry. I am just that kind of person. I'm just wired for like when something's happening to somebody else, I am feeling it. And, I know how to put up boundaries about that and stuff, but, mirror neurons, like when we are around somebody experiencing something, our bodies, especially if that's a traumatic thing for that other person, or even a really joyful thing, if it's more extreme, our bodies register it as though it was happening to us because our bodies do not believe the lie of separation. They know the truth that we are all connected. Financially speaking, what we need to lean into is the truth that economically and just with the flow of abundance energetically, we are all connected. And so if I hold back my abundance, and I was doing this because I had some privilege guilt that was not helping me or anybody else. And I was like, well, I already have been given so much, like I'm going to keep a ceiling on it. And then I had a girlfriend of mine help me realize that if I'm blocking my flow, I am literally preventing other people in my immediate sphere and also all my customers and all my community from opening up to their flow, because we are not separate. Money is meant to flow in and flow out. Yes, obviously you want to put some aside for your investing, but like, mostly it's here to come in and go out. We are all conduits of that abundance energy. And if I shut it down, the people who were supposed to get it after me I am blocking their source as well. And like literally speaking, the more I'm able to receive, the more jobs I create, the more I'm able to bless my community, the more I'm able to give. And so I really saw how my illusion of the lie of separation and the lie of scarcity, that I was operating in the lie of scarcity, that there's not enough to go around, and the lie of separation, that if I have more, automatically somebody has less.
Yeah.
Neither of which are true. We actually know from the data, there's a wonderful book called The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee. And in it, she shares that we have enough resources on the planet for everyone to live a really good life. And it's actually the lie of scarcity that causes people to be greedy and hoard things, which causes lack.
Yeah. I coached a woman years ago when I was doing business coaching. She wanted to be a doula. And I said, this is great. Let's see how we can make this work. And I go, what are your revenue goals for the year? And she's like 40,000. And I thought that was extremely low. I go, hey, imagine you just aimed for $1 million. I know it's a lot, but like, what would that look like to you? And she immediately went into, that's selfish. How dare that be a goal? That means I'm taking away from other people. And I said, well, if $30,000 was your goal, I think actually, no, it was 50. Imagine you made $1 million, but then you wrote a check for $950,000 for your charity of choice. And you can just see her face just went, wow, I never thought of it that way. And if the right people are creating this abundance,
then
it's infinite.
We need We need more money in the hands of conscious people.
Yeah.
We need more money in the hands of
100%.
conscious people. Right now on the planet, there is too much money in the hands of people who are asleep. And so those of us who are awake, who are connected to spirit, who are connected to our own personal development, who really care about other people and the planet, we really need more money in our hands, which is why I run my programs. Because I'm like, the more people who are conscious, who have money, absolutely the better for everyone, for sure. You could never convince me otherwise.
Oh, thank you for that. That was a huge level up for me in that moment. Just the people that are awake and in their spiritual consciousness and understand that we're connected.
Yeah.
Because there was still a part of me that thought it was greedy too. And now we can go out and celebrate. Like Dan just bought himself a really nice new car. And I was like, did he need that? And I was like, I like my car. Oh, okay. So good. I love this. So what are the programs that you have right now?
Yeah. So our signature program is called Relaxed Money. And it's the only program I know of that combines helping people to heal their nervous system at the same time as taking practical, positive action steps around being really good with money and making more. So it kind of handles all of it energetically, physically, embodiment, personal finance, and making more. So it covers all the bases. I teach it live over 13 weeks so that people can have that chance to integrate. Because what I know about co-regulation and community is that the sheer act of getting in community who are committed to healing and expansion in this way, who are operating in a set of agreements where we all get to be blessed. The more that blesses me, the more that flows through me. And my thermostat in the group is every single person can have what they want. No one can convince me otherwise. And when I know that on behalf of our students, their nervous system thermostat changes automatically because the frequency is powerful. So it's all the content, but then also that community and being in the energy of that frequency. So everyone's nervous system upgrades.
Ooh, so you do this once a year?
I do it actually twice a year. And our next enrollment is at the end of April.
Sweet. Okay, I'm going to check it out.
Great.
I have one last question for you. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
Oh, I mean, this is not going to surprise you, but to me, it's being connected to our bodies and to the divinity that runs through them.
I love it. You are incredible, Kate. I did not know what to expect in this, and you just coached me. I love it.
Well, this was such a fun conversation.
It's so awesome. So if people want to go online to find you, where can they go?
Yeah, so head over to Instagram. Kate Northrup is my Instagram name. And if you shoot me a DM that just only has the word wisdom, you'll get my free money breakthrough guide. So what I did is I messaged 20 of my highest earning women friends who are, high 6 figures, 7 figures, some 8 figures. And I asked them, what was your biggest money breakthrough of all time? And then they told me, and then I put it all in this guide. And then it has a companion lesson with it where I share my biggest money breakthroughs and I walk you through signaling safety in your body around money. So that's for free. But if you send me a DM with only the word wisdom, my little bot assistant will send it to you.
Yeah, go do that now. Well, Kate, it has been incredible. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Renee. This was great.